What's going on, everybody? TheKennyDubz here with another Mega Man X Dive character overview video. Today we're going to be taking a look at Droitclair, as she is one of the units that drops soon in the global version on the on the upcoming Dive Festival banner. So let's take a look at her kit. All right, and here we are taking a look at Droitclair here. Let's taking a look at her splash screen real quick as well. Okay. And for her active skills, first up we have the Evil Calling skill. Unleashes an evil spirit that can penetrate terrain and has an enemy-seeking effect to deal 169% attack damage to the target, then teleport to the target's location with possessed attack, dealing damage to all targets within range. The effect of the teleport is only valid for the player and will be used in place if no target is marked. And it's worth noting that the damage multiplier on the possessed attack is about 323% attack damage, which is quite a lot to have. So that is very, very nice there. And for the modifier chips, we have Skill Seal. When the target unable to use skills after being hit with the possessed attack. So that's the phase 2 of this attack. This attack has 2 phases. First, you do the Evil Calling and you hit with the Evil Spirit, and then use the possessed attack. And when you do that, you hit with the Skill Seal there. Dynamic instruction: when Evil Calling hits, it will now slow the target, reducing movement speed by 42%. So Evil Calling, like I said, is the first part of the attack. You can even see it here, that this is the the spirit coming out there, and here you can actually see the second step of the attack there. And then finally, you have Showtime. When attacking in possessed attack mode, you gain invincibility and do not take any debuff or damage, which is very, very nice here. We don't get many modifier chips that just raw give you true Showtime, but this is one of the ones that does. So this is probably what you're going to want to be using most of the time in PvP. Now I say most of the time because maybe you want to hit for the Skill Seal, or maybe you want the dynamic instruction, but for PvP you're probably going to want Showtime. You probably want this for PvE as well, as this is useless for PvE. So yeah, there's that. You can, I guess you can use it for PvE, but it's really not that good. Like, you're going to want to use the Showtime. Next up, we have the Evil Barrier. Unleashes an evil spirit to form a barrier around itself, resisting about 90% or 91% attack damage from attacks, and continues to deal roughly 122% attack damage to all the target touches. And for the modifier chips here, we have Spiritual Resonance, increased damage dealt by 20% in the presence of the Evil Spirit Barrier. So this is the damage that the oppositions will take while running into them, or if they get too close to you. Spiritual Response, damage reduced by 20% in the presence of the Evil Spirit Barrier. And then you have Spiritual Collapse. When the Evil Spirit Barrier absorbs too much damage and collapses, it causes an immobile status that cannot be removed and ignores friendly shields for all targets within its range. So this, again, this is what you're going to be using for PvP type scenarios. But it is worth noting that the wording here is very, very important, because it is like base double crosses wording. When the evil barrier absorbs too much damage and collapses. So what that means is, if this is taken away from you via singularity slash dispel, singularity slash, or dispelled with scourge, interference, or taken with grudge axe, you will not get this trigger here. So that is very, very important to make note of when you're going up against someone that might have access to one of those, just because it will get rid of it and you won't be able to trigger the Spiritual Collapse. Other than that, I think this is okay here, as this reduces the damage you take while in the presence of the evil barrier. So in theory, this makes the barrier a bit bulkier to take hits off on that, and this I just don't really like. Like, this is okay. I think you go this and then maybe this. This is pretty good for PvE. You can even use this one in PvE actually. But this is going to be what you want to go for PvP. Next up, the passive skills for Droitclair. First up, we have Clean Hit. The marker of Evil Calling cannot be removed and ignores burning shield. So that's actually pretty nice, just so that you can ensure that your second step goes off and that you teleport to the opposition there. Evil Spirit Counterattack. When attacked, there's a chance to unleash an evil spirit that can penetrate terrain and has an enemy-seeking effect to deal damage to the target. This effect can only be triggered once after 4-second cooldown. So the damage multiplier on this is about 125%, and the evil spirit chance is about 50%, which is really, really high. To be quite honest, I didn't think it would be that high, but you know, that's the information that the wiki says, so that's all we have to go off of. So 50% chance of being hit to trigger, you know, Evil Spirit counterattack, which is quite nice. Next up, we have Sprayer Mastery. Increases the damage by 20% when equipping a sprayer. So as long as you have a sprayer active on Droitclair, you will be doing some nice damage there as you have the amplification from this. Mental Cast is the next passive skill. Damage is increased by 35% when HP is below 35. Or I'm sorry, damage is increased by 25% when HP is below 35%. It also releases several shots of giant evil spirits to deal damage to all targets in its path, and giant evil spirits going to be triggered once per battle. I'm not a fan of this passive right here because you have to be really low HP to get the further damage amplification on Droitclair. Although the damage amplification is quite nice, that's initial 25%. On top of, if you have the Sprayer Mastery, that's just 45% damage amplification right there. And then the giant evil spirits as well are quite nice, as they have there's 6 giant evil spirits, and then they have a damage multiplier of 150% per spirit. So if all those end up connecting, you know, don't hit a chameleon chip or something, you have potential to deal quite a bit of damage off of that. The downside, though, again, is that this can only be triggered once per battle, and that you have to be below 34% to even get the damage increase from this. And finally, we have Unrest Realization. The Evil Spirit counterattack is enhanced to be sure to fire. So now when you get hit, you will trigger the Evil Spirit counterattack. But then even with that, you have to keep in mind that it's on a 4-second cooldown. So every 4 seconds, you will be firing this off. And a random buff will be seized from the target when that happens. So when it connects, you will be able to take a buff as if you have the Grudge Axe yourself, which is very interesting because I'm pretty sure Grudge Axe is based on Droitclair's design, or maybe Droitclair's based off of Grudge Axe's design. They are very, very similar. You know, appearance-wise, you can kind of see like some of the evil spirits relating to Droitclair on the Grudge Axe too, which is pretty nice. It will make you invincible when activated and not take any damage. So now when you get this, you actually have iframes on Evil Spirit counterattack as well, which is quite nice. Alright, so now let's take a look at her DNA. Her DNA will likely not be released when she's released in the global version of the game. However, I'm going to show it off here just so that, again, I say this a lot, so that you're aware of what she has in store for her DNA when it finally gets released in the global version of the game. First up, Spray Adaptability. When equipping Spray, take 20% less damage, which is always great. That'll be really nice combined with your shield as well, so it'll take a little bit longer to break. However, you might not want to unlock this if you're using sprayers on Droitclair, because while yes, it does make your shield a little bit tankier because you take 20% less damage while you have a sprayer equipped, that also means that it's harder for you to get to your spiritual collapse now, because in order for this to trigger, you need your shield to actually absorb damage and break, right? So it's kind of like the base double cross. Like, you want your barriers to break so that you get the benefits from them breaking, but if they're breaking, that means you might end up taking a little too much damage in the meantime. However, with this one though, this one just stuns and ignores protective shield, so you probably want this one. So I would advise not unlocking this if you're going to be using sprays with Droitclair. Next up, we have Enhanced Mental Chaos. Trigger Mental Chaos now when below 40% HP, which is better. Still don't really like it all that much, but better than being below 35%. And the preparation time for Evil Calling is now reduced by 20%. So that's quite nice. So your Evil Calling now has 20% less, 20% prep time reduction, and the Mental Chaos triggers when you're below 40% HP. Again, I don't really like this just because we're moving towards an era where you can get one tap pretty easily, or just like one combo really easily. So I don't really like that passive in general here. I guess it is worth noting that this does help out with assisting with getting to that passive, simply because you'll be taking 20% less damage with the sprayer. So that does make you able to take a few extra hits. But again, if you unlock that, it makes it harder for you to trigger this right here. So you might not want that. Though, with this, if you want to go with this build instead, go with the sprayer adaptability. You run the spiritual response, you take even less damage. So then it becomes a little bit harder to take out Droitclair, but I think it's much better to just run the spiritual collapse in PvE or PvP. And then finally, we have Enhanced Evil Spirit Barrier. The prep time for Evil Spirit Barrier is reduced by 20%. So now that prep time is reduced as well. And the damage rate of Evil Spirit Barrier is increased by 10%. That's okay. Like that wouldn't, I'm not really too sure why they included that. I feel like they could have given something better to that, to be quite honest. But you know, it's something, I suppose. The prep time reduction is quite nice. But yeah, that's it for her fixed DNA. Let's take a look at her random DNA, her unique random DNA, and this is relentless. HP is below 50%, gain a long duration burn of shield that will protect you from all negative status effects. This effect can only trigger once per stage. And again, I don't like the wording of preventative shield because they say protect you from all negative status effects, but we've been seeing in Droitclair's kit that that's obviously not true because some things just ignore preventative shield. So I don't like the wording. I'm not too sure if I like this passive. It definitely has some applicability, but I don't think it's that great. And then in here, we have some other defensive things as well. Summon Sentinel, Player Sentinel, 0 distance boost, 0 distance adaptability, spray adaptability, spray amplification, and, you know, some other things like that. And then over here, defocus resistance, which you might want, just so you don't get defocused, but that's not really too common right now. Confusion res, out of control resistance, maybe out of control resistance just because Grudgeaxe is running around. Those effects to immobilize resistance, immobilize special attack, which will trigger off of your shield collapsing, slow special attack, no skill special attack, and all these can trigger off of Droitclair's kit inherently. So maybe you want to go for some of these. It seems like they want her to be a bit more of a defensive character, but then they gave her spiritual collapse, so I'm just like, I'm like, that's pretty good. But at the same time, like, Grudgeaxe exists, so is Scourge and some other things. So it's like, I'm not really too sure what they want me to do. Maybe end up going, like I said, maybe end up going defense, a bit more defensive on Droitclair. It's, I don't know. I like the spiritual collapse, but Grudgeaxe, Scourge, and other things like that are running rampant, especially in the global version. So it might not be as good in practice as it sounds on paper. But that's it for the kit for Droitclair. So let's go ahead and take a look at some weapons that will pair well with her. Alright, since she prefers to use sprayers, you might want to invest in some sprayers to use with her. So Explosive Blower or Gator Fangs are very, very nice options. Both of these have high damage output, and they also have a bit of utility in themselves as well. Explosive Blower, many of you probably already know, but Shockwave, it's just stuns. That's just what Explosive Blower has done since its release. Explosive Blower has fallen off quite a bit since its initial release, so you might not see this all that often. I think Gator Fangs is a fantastic option though. Gator Fangs is very strong, especially when up close. The Predator status is fantastic, which was ring by 65%. And that is very, very good because it starts shooting out very, very quickly. And you also have Rending Fang as well. And what this does when you're in close range, it deals an additional roughly 83% attack damage, which is really, really nice. And then you have your Rapid Reload. And for your hidden skill on this, you can even go Jamming, which will allow you to go ahead and dispel a buff, or you could go with a 0 range adaptability if you want to go a more defensive route, because you want to be in close range with this weapon anyway, so 0 range adaptability can be quite nice. Coupling that with some of the things in Droid's DNA, and you can be a bit more tankier alongside that. But I feel like this is a bit more, if you the 0 range adaptability is a bit more niche in that regard. Another sprayer that you can use is the Guided Laser in the global version. I don't know if this has its hidden skill in the global version, but it is worth noting that this does have overheat protection. And another weapon that many of you might know that's overheat protection is the Turbo Cannon. So when you run out of ammo, this gets you iframes, which is very, very nice there. So that is something to keep in mind. Even if it doesn't have its hidden skill in the global version just yet, I figured I would throw it in here just because this is a very limited hidden skill. I believe only 2 weapons have this right now. And then with that, I don't think if you're gonna go for that, you're definitely gonna want to avoid getting improved energy shot, much like with the turbo cannon, just because this will raise the amount of ammo you have, meaning it takes you longer to get to your empty clip. But this weapon has, in addition to that, it also has defocus, which gives targets a chance to miss their attack. So that's quite nice. Since I mentioned turbo cannon earlier, I figured I would throw it in here as well. Turbo cannon just gives you access to iframes. However, with Droid in particular, I do think that guided laser is a bit better. But one of the major differences between turbo cannon and guided laser is the guided laser has a lot more ammunition. Turbo cannon only has 8 ammo, whereas I think it's 8 ammo anyway. Maybe it's 6. It's between 8 and 6 ammo, but just make sure you don't unlock compression energy tank, and then you get the hidden skill for this, which is the OV protection. Because we mentioned launchers, I could not forget to mention the Decides Will. Fantastic launcher. Many of you are already sick of this weapon, but this weapon is just too good to not mention. Alongside that, there is the, if you are more so on a budget or if you just don't have Decides Will, you can just easily make use of the Cannon God. Cannon God is just like the Decides Will at home. So that's an option you could use as well there. I think Glittering Spark might be a decent option as well for Droid, just because she does want to be at a fairly low amount of HP. So what you could actually do with Glittering Spark is inflict, you just obliterate your opponent by inflicting the debuff with the Glittering Spark and then the debuff with the Mad Nautilus chip. The downside with that strategy is that they have to not have preventative shield, because Glittering Spark doesn't ignore preventative shield, it doesn't have the Nautilus chip. So that is something you have to be mindful of. But I think that could be a bit of an interesting build there, just because you have the sprayer amplification, the sprayer mitigation, or I'm sorry, the sprayer adaptability, on top of obliterating their attack. You have your shield as well. So even if they don't end up breaking your shield, it'll be a bit harder for them to get through it, because if you're going with this build, I don't think you would even run spatial collapse. Right, you might run the 20% damage mitigation while you have your shield up if you're gonna run Glittering Spark. I think. Forgot I picked up this weapon recently, but yeah, Grudge Axe, and you can kind of see here how I mentioned earlier is kind of similar to Droitclair. It has like the spirits like kind of floating off of it, but Grudge Axe, again, this is one of those weapons that I can't really not mention. I don't really like it all that much, but I cannot deny its usefulness. Has Spirit Possession. Causes targets, to left and right controls to be reversed. Spirit Damnation, which is why people use Grudge Axe, because this is what steals buffs from the opposition. And you have Wretched Curse, being able to double the trigger rate of Spirit Damnation and extending the rate of this. So now you have an even better chance of triggering this, because it's only a chance. So this is a great weapon to use as well. Again, I don't really like it, but it's really good. Again, though, if you're using Droitclair in general, you just have to watch out for other axe users or even Singularity Slasher users. And speaking of Singularity Slasher, if you don't have the Grudge Axe, I figure I can mention that as well. Singularity Slasher just isn't as good as Grudge Axe. Grudge Axe is just a lot better, because why dispel the opponent's buffs when you can just take them for yourself? So that's basically why Grudge Axe is one of the reasons why Grudge Axe is used over Singularity Slasher. Singularity Slasher is quite nice, though. It can dispel up to 2 buffs, but Grudge Axe is just better, because like I said, why dispel the buff when you just take it for yourself? All right, real quick before we jump into the rest of the cards, I did want to point out Droitclair's card here. It has Enhanced Sprayer Mastery, so increases the effect of Sprayer Mastery by 20. And that's going to take it from 20% to 24%. It's not additive, it's multiplicative for that. But when you max out this card, it actually increases to 30%. So then it'll increase the base effect of it by 30% rather than 20%. And then you have Spray Amplification 2 here, which will change to Spray Amplification 3. So you'll have a decent chunk of just damage amplification just with alongside this card with Droid. The downside with this card though is this probably won't drop any global alongside Droid. I'm not sure. I think we got this pretty recently in the Taiwan version, so I don't think global's gonna get this for some time. But this is something I wanted to bring attention to. All right, so now we're here taking a look at the rest of the cards that might go well with Droid, and like I usually say, there are some usual suspects that you're going to want to look out for. Player Killer is always a good thing to have in PvP. You know, it's just generic. It works out very well. And cards that have access to things like Player Killer. The Akuma card does not have Player Killer, however, it has Master of the Fist, which will stack with Player Killer because it is a different effect. This has damage amplification and damage mitigation when you're in PvP, so that's very, very nice there. However, cards with Player Killer are the M Bison card, which came from the Street Fighter event. We have the Violin card as well, which I believe you can get from card packs currently, but is based on RNG. Then we have the Life Aura card that you can get from the token shop here. You can see it has Player Killer at the bottom there, Player Killer 2. And the Sigma X4 second form has Player Killer 2 as well. And then alongside those, the Wheel Gator card has access to Player Killer, and you can make this in the lab research. Now this only has Player Killer 1, but when you max out, it'll have Player Killer 2. And this is a green card here, and it triggers off of 2 greens and a yellow, so this will actually end up stacking with itself. And here we have the Mac card. Again, this only has Player Killer 1. But this card is fairly easy to get. It is available through RNG from the card packs you can get in the game. However, because it's an A rank, it won't be as hard to get from the card packs. And when you max this out, this will have Player Killer 2. Some of the cards you might want to look into depending on which way you're going to end up building Droid. The Flame Hammer card has Spray Adaptability 1. It also has Slow Special Attack 1. So if you're going to opt for if you're going to end up opting for the Dynamic Destruction card, or just Dynamic Destruction modifier chip, you can opt to go for something like this that has Slow Special Attack on it. The Blanca card has Immobilize Special Attack, which you can make use of if you're going to go for the Spiritual Collapse modifier chip. Again, though, you just have to be aware that if your shield doesn't take too much damage and collapses, and gets stolen from you, dispelled, what have you, you'll not be able to trigger it, and you won't be able to get the Immobilize. However, you will get the Immobilize if you use the Explosive Blower. I didn't mention any hybrid weapons in particular, but if you're going to opt to go, say, melee plus buster hybrid, so say like Grudge Axe plus Air Buster, you can opt to go for the Elite Hunter cards. Elite Hunter is just just your standard. If you're going to use Buster Melee combo, it stacks with itself, so then you get the level 2s and level 3s, and that's just something you can do. The Chameleon card can also work pretty decently as well if you don't mind having the Spray Adaptability here, as has Spray Adaptability and Spray Amplification on one card. The only downside is that this is the limited card that came from the Monster Hunter event part 2, and we won't be able to see it again until we get the 3rd run of the Monster Hunter event. Alright, I think that is going to be it for going over Droid's kit. So hopefully you guys enjoyed and gave you some ideas of what to do with Droid if you're going to be pulling for her. If you are going to be pulling for her, good luck to all of you there. We should be having a free pull, so maybe some of us will get lucky on the free pull with that. Real quick before I end this video, just want to throw a quick shout out to my Patreon and my YouTube channel members. Thank you for supporting me and allowing me to continue to do what I do. If you'd like to support me as a channel patron or as a patron or a YouTube channel member, you can find out to do so down below in the video description. And I will catch you guys next time. Later.